Welcome back to the Fiercely Fueled podcast. So, we need to talk about something today, and that is we need to talk about preserving muscle mass during injuries. So, obviously, we want to try to prevent injuries as much as possible, but sometimes that's just simply not possible. So if you've ever been away from lifting or it's any exercise for any extended period of time due to injury, I'm not really talking about a muscle strain here that's maybe going to keep you out for a week or two. I'm talking about something that's going to keep you out for several weeks, if not months, potentially even a year or more, which is actually what happened to me. So we'll get into that. But if you've been away for any length of time, you know really well the body composition changes that often go along with that. And a lot of times, what's happening is we're losing muscle mass, especially if you have a high amount of muscle mass. You're going to lose muscle mass during periods of injury. The goal of that period of time is to preserve muscle mass, which we're going to get into how to do that. But also, people often start to accumulate a little bit of body fat. So while your body weight might be staying the same, your muscle mass is decreasing and your body fat is increasing. This is very common, and this is not a sign that you're doing anything wrong. In fact, we could almost think of it as we think of bulking stages where when we're trying to put on muscle, we oftentimes put on a little bit of body fat or a lot of body fat, depending on how you're doing the bulk. You don't have to do it that way though, just FYI. We can minimize the amount of body fat gained during a bulk. But the point of the matter is that when we are trying to preserve or gain muscle mass, there may be some fat gain that goes along with that. So I really often see a lot of lifters that decide to use the period of time that they are in injury recovery as a time to put themselves in a caloric deficit. So maybe they were feeling like, hey, I really want to I really have been wanting to decrease my body fat a little bit, but I didn't want it to impact my performance. So now that I'm not really training much, now would be a perfect time. And you would be sorely mistaken if you go that route. When you put yourself in a caloric deficit, you are probably going to lose muscle mass, almost every caloric deficit. Now, if we do it right, we might be able to increase muscle mass or at least maintain muscle mass. But a lot of people in a deficit are going to lose a little bit of muscle mass. The way that we keep that on is to continue resistance training. So if we're really not doing hard training, you're likely going to lose muscle mass, especially in a deficit. So putting yourself in a deficit during a period of injury is a really bad idea from the standpoint of retaining or holding on to the amount of muscle mass that you have. Now, oftentimes people will be like me, and you're away from the gym from an extended period of time. So in my case, I really couldn't do much training at all. I had a very, very severe dislocation of my clavicle from my sternum. So that is the thing that holds your shoulder girdle onto your body. I couldn't even engage in brisk walking. It was too much movement for my clavicle. So I was very, very limited. I definitely could not hold even light dumbbells. I could do some leg machines, but this all happened right at the very beginning of the pandemic. So there went the leg machines. So there was not much that I could do at home to maintain my muscle mass. I did what I could. I did body weight stuff, but ultimately over time, what happened was I was losing muscle mass. I was gaining body fat. And it was very, very difficult for me to watch my body change in that way, especially since I had spent so much time building that muscle. I was also almost 40 at this period of time. And we know that building muscle mass over age 40 is more difficult, right? We have a decreased ability to digest protein. We have a decreased sensitization to the things that cause us to gain muscle. So when we are looking at someone who's 40 or older, potentially losing muscle mass, that's not a good thing. So what I had to do was hang in there, do what I could from an exercise standpoint, which wasn't very much, and just watch my body change in ways that were difficult to see. Um, but for me, my health is always at the forefront of any decision making. So, the one thing that we haven't talked about yet is that when you are in a caloric deficit, your body does not heal properly. So you can't put yourself in a caloric deficit when you're healing from an injury. This is a really, really bad idea. You will delay the healing process simply because a caloric deficit means that your body's not getting everything that it needs to do all of its repair processes. In fact, people that have done lots of chronic dieting or just are in an aggressive dieting phase, we may see more injuries during periods of time like that. So, we need to kind of resist that temptation to cut some of the fluffiness that we might be feeling during a caloric deficit in order to maintain our muscle mass and shorten the amount of time as much as possible for healing. Another thing that's going to be really important during this period of time is to make sure that you're getting adequate amounts of protein. So, for most athletes, that's going to be about 2 grams per kilogram of protein a day. If your body fat percentage puts you into an obese category, so 33% and above for women, 25% and above for men, then you want to go off of lean body mass. So you would do 2 grams per kilogram of lean body mass. Otherwise, if your body fat percentage is lower than that, then you're good at 2 grams per kilogram of protein a day. And eat nourishing foods, eat a healthy diet, right? Eat lots of fruits and vegetables. These are the things that we need to do in order to increase healing on top of just recovering from our injury and letting our body do what it needs to do. So I know that it's really, really difficult to watch your body change in ways that maybe you don't like or that are hard for you. But for me, a little over 2 years out now from this injury. I had a re-injury in the middle of that. So it was very complicated. But being that I'm now in my 40s, 40, almost 42, I thought, you know what? It's way easier to lose body fat than it is to gain muscle mass, especially at my age. So I'm going to do everything I can to hold on to this. So now, in the last couple of months, I have been training pretty hard. My training's ramping back up. I'm almost back to my lifetime 1RMs on many lifts and projected to be higher on even some other lifts. So as I'm healthy now and able to drop some of that body fat kind of naturally, partway through just getting back into hard training again, partly through some strategic caloric deficits, I can see that that muscle mass that I was trying my hardest to hold on to is still there. 2 years later, with kind of minimal training, some of it is decreased for sure, but way more has hung around than I expected to. And I think that that is because I was very strategic in the fact that I just let my body do what it needed to do to heal. Um, so really, this is just your reminder that a huge majority of what we do is delayed gratification. You've got to get comfortable being uncomfortable for the long haul in order to grow in any way. So sometimes that means that changes are happening to our body that we don't really like, but remember that it's not just aesthetics here we're talking about. It's not just, holding on to muscle mass because that's fun. I mean, one reason we want to accumulate a lot of muscle mass is so that as we potentially lose muscle mass during the aging process, we can maintain our independence for a lot longer. It's also about healing properly from an injury, which you are not going to do in a deficit. So these are times where I think that if you're going through something like this, the support of a coach through this time can be absolutely crucial to keep your head on straight and make the best decisions for your goals. I definitely had a team of people through this period of time that I've been working with that have been helping me make sure that I'm doing the right thing and that my emotions about things aren't taking over and leading the way, that I can really be strategic about what I'm trying to do and make sure that I'm making the best decisions for myself. So to recap, if you're going to be away from the gym for an extended period of time for any reason, don't put yourself in a caloric deficit and lose muscle mass. If you're away from the gym because of an injury, don't put yourself in a caloric deficit because you're going to delay healing. So get comfortable in the discomfort zone and stay fierce. If you like the show, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to my free email newsletter at guide.fiercelyfueled.com/podcast. In addition to updates, articles, and behind-the-scenes tips from my team and I, my email newsletter subscribers also get my pre- and post-training meals guide to help you position yourself to get stronger faster than you ever thought possible. You can get it all for free at guide.fiercelyfueled.com/podcast. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Fiercely Fueled Nutrition. And lastly, this show is meant to make the strength world a better, stronger, and healthier place. Please share it with your friends and subscribe to the show.